They say every love story starts with a spark. Ours began under dim cafe lights and soft rain, the kind of setting that makes even loneliness feel cinematic. Ryan was sitting by the window, sleeves rolled up, smiling like he'd been waiting for me all along. He had this quiet confidence, the kind that made the room lean toward him without realizing it. When our eyes met, I felt seen for the first time in years. He said my name like it belonged to him, soft and deliberate. We talked for hours that night, about music, about the meaning of scars, about why people pretend to be happy even when they're breaking inside. I told him I didn't believe in forever. He just smiled and said, "Then I'll make you believe." It wasn't a love story at first. It was a rescue. He pulled me from my routine life, from the silence of an empty apartment, from myself. Within months, I was living in his world, morning coffee beside his notes, his laughter filling my small kitchen, his arms always around my shoulders like armor. Our wedding came fast, too fast maybe. Everyone said we looked perfect together. The photographs still proved them right. My white dress glimmering under sunset light, his eyes locked on me like a promise he'd never break. But I remember a moment the camera didn't capture. When the vows ended, his fingers tightened around mine, almost too hard, and he whispered, "Now you'll never have to be alone again." It sounded sweet at the time. It sounded like safety. After the guests left and the music faded, he carried me into our new home, the one he'd chosen by the lake. The air smelled of rain and fresh paint. I remember thinking, this is how peace feels. But then, just before sleep, I heard something. The soft creak of floorboards, a whisper of movement below us. Ryan said it was the wind. He kissed my forehead and pulled me closer. Still, as the night deepened, a strange chill pressed against my chest. A warning I ignored, because love, when it begins, is too beautiful to question. And I didn't yet know that beauty can be the most dangerous disguise of all. The lake house sat alone at the edge of still water, surrounded by trees that leaned in too close, as if they were listening. Ryan called it his quiet paradise, a place where we could start our life together, away from the noise of the city. I wanted to believe him. I told myself that isolation could be peace, not a warning. The first week passed in a blur of unpacking and pretending. Ryan was patient, affectionate, everything a husband should be. But the house had moods. Some days it felt warm, sunlit, alive. Other nights it exhaled a chill that slipped beneath the walls, whispering through the hallways when Ryan was gone. He began leaving after dinner, claiming late-night calls with clients. I would wake to the sound of his car returning long past midnight, headlights cutting through the mist. When I asked what he was working on, he'd smile, kiss my hand and say, "Nothing that should worry you." But his eyes never matched the softness in his voice. The rooms started to feel heavier. The wooden floors creaked even when I stood still, as though the house shifted around me. Sometimes I caught glimpses of shadows where there shouldn't be any, reflections bending in the windows, shapes that vanished when I turned. One afternoon, while cleaning, I found a door I hadn't noticed before, tucked behind an old wardrobe in the hallway. Its handle was rusted, the keyhole sealed with dust. When I asked Ryan about it, his smile faltered for the first time since our wedding. "It's just the basement," he said too quickly. "Nothing worth going down there for." After that, the door seemed to hum with curiosity. Every time I walked past, I felt a faint vibration under my feet, like a pulse. At night, I would lie awake, listening. The wind outside moved through the trees, but beneath it was something else, a low sound, rhythmic, almost human. I started to write down what I heard. Small notes in a hidden journal. Second night, tapping 3 times. 5th night, at footsteps when Ryan's gone. 8th night, whisper near the door. I wanted to tell him, but I knew he wouldn't believe me. He'd laugh, brush it off, maybe kiss me until I forgot the fear. So I said nothing. On the 10th night, I woke to Ryan standing by the window, staring out at the lake. His reflection looked different, colder. When I whispered his name, he didn't move. He just said quietly, "The house keeps secrets, Lena. Best not to ask what they are," and in that moment I realized it wasn't just me the house was watching. It was him too. I used to think love was supposed to make you feel safe. But lately, safety felt like a memory I couldn't return to. The house no longer frightened me as much as Ryan did. Not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't. It started with small things. A receipt folded in his jacket pocket. A hardware store 2 towns over, dated before our wedding, under a name that wasn't his. Ryan Cole. I thought it was a mistake until I saw that same name again in an old envelope tucked inside his office drawer. The handwriting wasn't his either. It looked feminine, elegant. I tried to ignore it. I tried to be the trusting wife I promised I'd be. But the questions began to whisper louder than the house ever did. One evening, he was on the phone in the study. His voice was low, urgent. When I walked in, he ended the call too quickly. "Who was that?" I asked. He smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Just work, Lena." "You always say that," I murmured. "But what kind of work needs whispering?" He chuckled softly, moving closer until his breath touched my cheek. The kind you wouldn't understand. That night while he showered, I searched his desk again. I found a photograph, old, creased, of a woman standing by the same lake house. Her hair dark like mine, her smile strangely familiar. On the back in fading ink it read, "Forever yours, M." When Ryan came out, towel around his neck, he caught me holding it. The warmth drained from his face. "Where did you get that?" he asked, voice sharp, dangerous. "I found it," I said. "Who is she?" He snatched it from my hand, eyes narrowing. "Don't go through my things." "You lied to me," I whispered. "Even your name—" "My name is Ryan," he shouted, slamming the desk drawer shut. "You twist everything into something it's not. You've been unstable lately." His tone changed, softer but crueler. He touched my arm gently, almost kindly. "I think the house is getting to you. You hear things, imagine things. Maybe you should rest." For a moment, I believed him. His words wrapped around me like chains disguised as comfort. I wanted to be wrong, to think my mind was the problem, not him. But then I saw it. A thin scar running along his ribs as he changed his shirt, one that looked too deliberate, too surgical. "Where did you get that?" I asked quietly. He froze, hand hovering midair. "Accident," he said. "Long time ago." He walked out before I could ask more. I heard the basement door creak open, then close. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, clutching my hidden journal. The house felt alive again, whispering through the cracks. I thought I heard a voice, a woman's, murmuring my name. And in that dark silence, I realized something horrifying. Maybe love wasn't the lie. Maybe he was. The first time I heard about her, it came from the woman next door, Mrs. Halloway, a fragile figure with eyes that always seemed to know more than she said. She brought over a pie one afternoon, her hands trembling slightly as she passed it to me. "Such a lovely house," she murmured, glancing past me into the hallway. "Ryan kept it well, even after." "Everything. After what?" I asked. Her smile froze. "Oh dear, I thought you knew. His first wife, the young one who lived here before you. She went missing a few years back. Never found." The pie in my hand suddenly felt heavy. My pulse quickened, but I forced a polite smile. "You must be mistaken," I said quietly. Mrs. Halloway shook her head. "No, I remember the police cars, the lights. He said she ran away. But people don't just vanish like that, do they?" That night, I waited for Ryan to fall asleep before slipping into the small office. I began searching. The kind of search you do when you're terrified of what you'll find. I combed through drawers, folders, even behind picture frames. In one folder, tucked beneath tax papers, I found an old newspaper clipping. "Local woman missing. Authorities continue search near lake." The black and white photo showed the same woman from the photograph I'd found earlier. The one signed, "Forever Yours." And my stomach twisted. I searched her name online, scrolling through missing person forums, old police reports, scattered comments from strangers. They all ended the same way, case unsolved. Ryan's voice startled me. "Can't sleep again?" I jumped, closing the laptop. He stood in the doorway, smiling too calmly. "You really should rest, Lena. You look haunted." After he went back upstairs, I sat in the dark, listening. His footsteps faded, then returned, softer this time. I followed, careful not to let the floorboards betray me. He was heading toward the basement, the place he told me never to enter. The door was cracked open. A faint light spilled through. I crouched by the stairwell, peering down. Ryan stood at the bottom, facing the far wall, speaking in a low voice. His tone was gentle, intimate, the same one he used when we first met. "It's okay," he said. "I told you I'd keep her close. She doesn't know yet." For a moment I thought he was on the phone, but there was no signal in that basement. No one else in sight. I backed away slowly, heart pounding until the floor creaked beneath my heel. He stopped talking. "Lena?" His voice echoed up the stairs, calm, patient, terrifying. I ran before he reached the top. That night, locked in our bedroom, I realized I didn't know who I had married. And worse, he knew that I knew. The morning after I heard him in the basement, Ryan acted as though nothing had happened. He made pancakes, hummed softly, kissed my temple like any loving husband. His normalcy felt rehearsed, like a mask worn too perfectly. I played along, but inside my nerves buzzed with dread. I needed proof, something to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. That night, while he was out again, I decided to search the one place I hadn't dared before, the attic. The air was heavy up there, thick with dust and secrets. Old trunks, boxes, and faded photographs lined the wooden beams. My flashlight caught something wedged behind a stack of paint cans, a small black camcorder wrapped in cloth. Its battery was old but intact. My hands trembled as I pressed play. Static filled the screen, then cleared to show Ryan. Younger, cleaner shaven, but unmistakably him. He was sitting on the basement floor, blood splattered across his shirt. His eyes looked wild, terrified, but not of someone else, of himself. "I didn't mean to," he whispered to the camera. She wouldn't stop screaming. I told her I was sorry. I just wanted her to listen. His voice cracked. He looked off screen as if speaking to someone lying beside him. "You said you loved me, didn't you?" "You said forever." He began to cry, quiet. Broken sobs that didn't sound like guilt, but possession. Then he turned back toward the camera and whispered, "They'll never find you here." The video cut off with a sharp click. No body, no proof. Just those words, echoing in the stillness of the attic. My stomach lurched. I replayed it twice, each time hoping I'd misunderstood, but the truth grew heavier. Ryan had killed before, and I was living inside his crime scene. The creak of footsteps below snapped me back to the present. He was home early. Panic surged through me. I switched off the camcorder, shoved it into a box, and covered it with old clothes. "Lena?" His voice floated up the stairs. "What are you doing up there?" "Just cleaning." I forced a laugh, praying my voice didn't tremble. He climbed halfway before stopping. "You know the attic isn't safe. I don't want you hurting yourself." "I'll be down in a second," I said quickly. His footsteps lingered for a moment, then retreated. I exhaled shakily. My reflection in the attic window looked pale, almost unrecognizable. I realized that the woman I used to be, trusting, gentle, forgiving, was gone. That night I hid the camcorder under a loose floorboard in our bedroom. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I wanted to run, but where? He'd find me. He always found everything. As I lay beside him in bed, he reached for my hand. His fingers were warm, steady. "You've been distant lately," he whispered. "Is there something you're not telling me?" I turned toward him, forcing a smile in the dark. "No, Ryan, nothing at all, but in my chest, the truth pulsed like a heartbeat I could no longer silence. And somewhere below us, in that locked basement, I swore I heard the faint hum of a woman crying, for days. I pretended nothing was wrong. I smiled when he smiled, cooked when he asked, and kissed him goodnight with lips that trembled under the weight of what I knew. But every time I looked at him, the image from the camcorder replayed in my mind. Ryan, bloodstained and whispering apologies to someone who would never answer again. The lie between us had grown so thick, I could hardly breathe through it. That evening, I couldn't keep pretending. The tension was too heavy, the silence too loud. He was sitting at the kitchen table reading the newspaper. When I finally said, "I found something," he looked up slowly, expression unreadable. "Found what?" "In the attic," I said. "A camera." "You were on it." His body went still, the way a predator freezes before striking. "You shouldn't go through my things. It wasn't yours to hide." My voice cracked, louder than I intended. "Who was she, Ryan?" "The woman in the video? The one you said you'd keep close?" He stood calm, deliberate. "You're tired, Lena. You've been hearing things, seeing things that aren't there." I slammed my hand on the table. "Stop making me feel crazy. I saw you. You killed her." The room fell silent. For a moment I thought he might hit me, but instead he smiled. a cold, thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Do you think anyone will believe you?" he asked softly. "You've been writing about ghosts in your journal, talking about voices in the walls. You sound unstable." My throat tightened. "You're lying." He stepped closer, his hand brushing against my cheek. "I'm protecting you. That's what love is, never leaving no matter what happens." Then, with terrifying gentleness, he whispered, "Even death can't separate us, Lena." Something in me snapped. I shoved him back, shouting, "You're sick!" The sound of shattering glass filled the air as a vase hit the floor. For the first time, his mask cracked, his eyes dark, furious. "Don't ever raise your voice at me again," he said, each word sharp and deliberate. "You don't understand what loyalty means. But you will." I ran to the bedroom, locked the door, and pressed my back against it, shaking. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger's, pale, broken, terrified. That night, as he slept beside me, I made a silent promise. I would escape no matter what it cost, because love shouldn't feel like prison walls closing in. And I finally understood. The only way out of this house might be to destroy the man who built it. The storm began just after sunset, wind tearing through the trees, rain drumming against the windows like frantic hands begging to be let in. I took it as a sign. If there was ever a night to leave, it was this one. Ryan had gone into town, or so he said. I watched his car disappear down the dirt road before I moved. My hands shook as I packed, shoving a few clothes, cash, and the hidden camcorder into a small duffel bag. Every sound made me flinch, the thunder, the floorboards, my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. I rehearsed my plan over and over. Reach the car. Drive until the lake vanished in the rearview mirror. Find a police station and finally tell someone everything. But deep down, I feared he already knew. He always seemed to know. When I reached the front door, the lights flickered once, twice, and then died completely. Darkness swallowed the room. The storm outside howled louder, wind rattling the shutters like laughter. I grabbed my phone, but there was no signal. "Please," I whispered to no one. "Just let me leave." I stepped into the rain. The gravel crunched under my boots as I ran toward the car. My fingers were trembling too badly to fit the key into the lock when lightning split the sky. And in that flash, I saw him. Ryan stood at the edge of the driveway, drenched, motionless. In his hand, he held our wedding photo, the one where he'd promised forever. The frame was cracked. The glass caught the lightning like a blade. "Going somewhere?" he asked, voice calm, almost tender. I took a step back. "You need help, Ryan. Please, just let me go." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "After everything I've done for you? After everything we are? Everything we are is a lie." I screamed, my voice breaking. "You killed her, and you would have killed me too if I stayed." His smile faded. "You don't understand, Lena. I don't hurt the ones I love." He moved closer. I backed toward the car door, gripping the keys like a weapon. Rain soaked my hair, my clothes, my fear. The storm drowned out my heartbeat. "Stay," he whispered, inches from me now. "Please, don't make me." I swung. The keys slashed across his cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. He stumbled, eyes wide with disbelief. For a heartbeat, we both froze. Then chaos. His hand grabbed my arm. Mine found the flashlight. There was a struggle, a scream. Mine or his, I couldn't tell. And then a sudden, deafening silence that swallowed the storm. When it ended, the only sound was the rain. The flashlight rolled across the ground, its beam cutting through the mist, illuminating the still water of the lake. Something, someone, was gone. Morning crept into the house like an intruder, slow, cold, and uninvited. The storm had passed, leaving behind a silence so deep it pressed against the walls. Ryan stood in the living room, a rag in one hand, a bucket in the other. The smell of bleach burned the air. He worked carefully, almost peacefully, scrubbing at the crimson streaks smeared across the wooden floor. Each stroke erased a fragment of what had happened the night before, or tried to. His reflection in the wet surface looked like a stranger's, hollow-eyed, calm, unshaken. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he muttered under his breath. "She wouldn't listen. She made me do it." His voice trembled, not from fear but from disbelief, as though he were still trying to convince himself that he was the victim in his own story. He moved to the sink, rinsing the rag, watching the pink water swirl down the drain. She attacked me, he whispered louder now. It was self-defense. Anyone would have done the same. The words felt rehearsed, like lines from a script he'd written for himself long before the truth had a chance to speak. He turned toward the window, expecting to see her car still parked outside, the storm-washed gravel glistening, but the driveway was empty. His heart quickened. He walked to the back door, still unlocked, and stepped out into the morning haze. The lake shimmered quietly, its surface unbroken. No body, no trace, just the echo of rain and the memory of her scream. He returned inside, pacing. She couldn't have gone far, he murmured. She was hurt. She'll come back. She always does. His hand brushed against the wedding photo lying shattered on the counter. He picked it up, tracing Lena's smiling face with his thumb. You promised me forever, he said softly. Forever means not leaving. For the first time, his voice cracked. The calmness began to splinter, giving way to something raw. Desperation disguised as devotion. He sank into the chair, breathing heavily, eyes flicking toward the basement door. Maybe she'd gone there. Maybe she was still in the house, waiting. He stood slowly, almost hopeful, and began descending the creaking steps. The light flickered above him as his voice faded into the dark. Lena, are you here? The silence that answered was almost human, heavy, listening, alive, and somewhere behind the walls, something dripped. The letter came on a gray morning, slipped through the mail slot like a ghost's whisper. Ryan stood in the hallway, staring at the envelope as if it might bite him. His name was written in Lena's looping script, steady, deliberate, too alive for someone who should have been gone. For a long time, he didn't move. The world seemed to narrow around that envelope. Finally, with trembling fingers, he tore it open. Ryan, by the time you read this, I'll be long gone. You taught me how to lie, how to smile through fear, but you forgot that I can learn. I know who you were before the name Ryan existed. I know about your first wife. I know what's buried under the house. And I left proof. The last words were underlined twice. Ryan's throat went dry. The paper trembled in his hands as his eyes darted across the rest of the page. Accusations, timelines, names, every secret he'd carefully buried written in her handwriting. She's lying, he whispered, pacing. She has to be. But the fear was real, sharp as the metallic tang that still haunted the house. He rushed to the study, flinging open drawers, overturning boxes, rifling through shelves. Every sound echoed too loudly in the still air. Proof, he muttered. She said proof. He searched the bedroom next, tearing at the mattress, ripping open the seams of pillows. He could feel her presence in every room, her perfume faintly clinging to the curtains, her laughter lingering like static. Then, a thought crawled into his mind. The basement, his heart began to hammer. The door had been locked since that night. He was sure of it. He approached slowly, the floorboards groaning beneath his weight. His hand hesitated on the knob. It turned easily, unlocked. He froze, breath caught in his chest. A draft seeped from the dark stairwell below, cool and damp, carrying a faint metallic scent. Lena? He called softly. His voice cracked the silence, no reply. Only the low hum of the refrigerator somewhere upstairs, muffled by distance. Step by step, he descended into the dim. The air grew heavier, pressing against his skin. Shadows trembled across the walls like things alive. At the bottom, the faint glow of a light bulb swung gently, as if someone had been there just moments before. On the workbench lay another envelope. His name again. Ryan reached for it, but before his fingers touched the paper, the bulb flickered once, twice, and went out. In the dark, a voice whispered near his ear, soft and unmistakable. I told you I'd never leave. The morning was gray, heavy with clouds that seemed to mirror the tension in the air. Police cars arrived quietly at the lake house, lights muted against the mist. Ryan opened the door with his usual calm, too polite, too composed. The officer's questions were direct, clinical, but he answered with rehearsed ease. Yet behind the facade I could sense the panic, the crackling tension that comes when a carefully constructed world begins to crumble. They led him away for questioning, leaving the house open. Officers fanned out, flashlights cutting through the shadows of the basement. That's where the first discovery was made. Skeletal remains carefully stacked in the corner, draped in remnants of a dress. the first wife. Dust and decay told stories of long-forgotten screams, secrets hidden beneath floorboards and false walls. Then, something else caught their attention. A thin streak of fresh blood leading from the basement door, down the steps, and out toward the lake. The officers followed it carefully, hand over hand, until they reached the water's edge. The lake had been calm, serene, a deceptive mirror to the chaos beneath. Minutes later, a body broke the surface. Lena. Her hair plastered to her face, her eyes wide but conscious, clutching a small, blood-stained USB in her hand. Officers fished her from the water, working fast to keep her alive. She coughed, gasped, shivering, but her resolve remained unbroken. The USB went straight into evidence. In the safe quiet of the precinct, they played its contents. Hours of footage, meticulously recorded, revealed Ryan's life before Lena, the first wife, confessions, even his voice whispering apologies after each violent act. The recordings were chilling, intimate, horrifying. Every lie, every hidden act exposed in her careful hands. Ryan sat across from investigators, staring blankly at the screen. His calm had shattered, every carefully maintained mask peeled away layer by layer. He did not speak. The footage spoke for him, a confession written in pixels and shadows. The scene returned to Lena, lying on the hospital bed later that night. The monitors beeped steadily. Life reclaimed slowly after betrayal, struggle, and near death. In her voiceover, calm yet raw, the story began. I thought love could save us. I was wrong. Love can kill. It hides behind smiles, gestures, promises. It binds you, blinds you, and sometimes it becomes the weapon that destroys everything you thought you knew about the world and the man you loved. The lake house was cordoned off, the media gathering, the neighbors whispering in disbelief. The documentary team pieced together the timeline from Lena's recordings. Each revelation, the basement, the blood, the first wife, the threats, painted a story far darker than anyone could have imagined. Ryan's name would echo in headlines. Trials, whispers of fear, obsession, and murder. But Lena's voice remained steady, relentless, immortalized in the footage. The witness who turned fear into proof, betrayal into testimony, love into caution. And as the camera panned over the lake one last time, reflecting the gray sky and shattered trees, her words lingered in the air. I thought love could save us. I was wrong. Love can kill. Years had passed since the lake house became a crime scene, yet its shadow lingered in whispers and headlines. The true crime documentary team had meticulously pieced together Lena's story from the recovered footage. Her camcorder, the USB, her journals, every detail, every confession, every subtle fear was stitched together to reveal the truth Ryan had tried so desperately to hide. The filmmaker's voice carried over grainy images of the lake at dawn, fog rolling across the water, and the now-abandoned house. This is not just a story of murder, she said. It is a story of control, obsession, and the terrifying lengths one can go to hide behind love. Ryan sat in a maximum security prison cell, the walls closing in like the house once had. He refused interviews, refused statements, his silence as loud as any confession. Years of parole hearings, appeals, and public outrage had done nothing to break him. He had no visitors, no letters, no acknowledgement. In the sterile light of his cell, he remained a ghost of the man Lena had loved, or thought she had loved. The footage showed Lena, alive again, years later, her eyes calm but haunted. She never spoke on camera beyond the recordings she had made in the house. Her testimony, captured in the USB, was her voice across time, warning, teaching, remembering. The documentary shifted to the lake house one crisp morning. It had been sold to a new family, cheerful and unaware of the horrors beneath its floorboards. The children ran across the lawn while the parents posed for a photograph, smiling in the sunlight. Unseen by them, the camera in the basement, hidden exactly where Lena had left it, continued to record, silent and patient. Some houses remember, the filmmaker's narration continued, even when the people who lived there are gone. And some love stories never truly end. As the camera panned slowly upward from the basement toward the windows, the walls seemed to exhale a quiet warning. Shadows from old memories lingered in the corners, subtle and unclaimed. The wind whispered across the trees, echoing a scream no one would ever forget. The final frame lingered on the calm lake, its surface mirroring the clouds above, concealing secrets that had shaped lives, destroyed trust and changed everything. Lena's words, the last indelible warning, filled the silence. I thought love could save us. I was wrong. Love can kill. The screen faded to black. The credits rolled over the echo of Lena's voice and the gentle, insistent ripple of the lake, leaving viewers with a chilling understanding. Love, when twisted, can be the most dangerous weapon of all.